Oh, Shalom, Most High in Christ, bless brothers and sisters. Happy New Moon. Happy New Moon. I'm also Nathaniel with TTIC, which stands for the Truth in Christ. And for today's New Moon class, I will be the teacher. Happy New Moon, everybody. Happy New Moon, Elder. Happy New Moon. This is a time when that I believe, and I know that saying that is not just to be saying it. Happy New Moon. We greet all our Sabbath days, feast days with that right in the beginning. Happy New Moon. Happy Passover. We always say these words, this particular word right in the beginning. And I'm saying this for this reason because anytime we have these things, we have, as I was stating the prayer, in prayer, we have these things that God had given us. God has not given nobody else on the planet his holy days other than us, his children. It made me think about the book of Deuteronomy. You got your Bibles, your swords. Men, go to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 48. Now we know when Deuteronomy speaks of the curses, and the curses are placed upon us because we failed to hearken to the voice of the Lord our God. We become stiff-necked, hard-headed. We turned our back and we forsook the laws of God. But right here in Deuteronomy 28, and I'm just bringing this out before I actually get started. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 48 says, "Therefore, thou shalt serve thine enemies." I'm sorry, verse 47. It says, "Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, and for the abundance of all things." That's stipulated because that's one of the reasons why God put these curses upon us. Because we did not serve the Lord with, you got to think about that joyfulness. Elder, Elder has said it time and time again. When we come together, we ought to have a certain kind of enthusiastic feeling about the day, this particular time. We get together as brothers. I'm glad to see my brothers and sisters. I'm glad to be around us being together. We're not around one another often enough, really, to tell you the truth. I mean, the Sabbath day, and then when we have the new moons, we do have our feast days. But to be able to convocate, have that holy convocation, why is it brother Yona, why is it holy? What's that telling us? That holy convocation. What does holy mean? Separate. Yeah. So the convocation is what? Gathering. So our gathering is set apart from the rest of the world. Nobody else gathers the way we do. And for the reasons we do. So just to throw that out there, we always have to have that enthusiastic feeling in our hearts, in our minds, to be joyful and have a certain gladness when we come together. Even if it's a short period of time, we're gonna do this thing. We pray. We're gonna have this class, and then we're gonna feast. And we should be always happy and joyful unto the Lord and towards our brothers and sisters. To get it started, as we customarily do, we're going to get into some new moon classes. We're going to go to, let's start out in Psalms 81. Let's start out in Psalms 81. I'm going to read verses 3 and 4. It says, "Blow up the trumpet in the new moon. which we did right before prayer. We blow up the trumpet in the new moon in the time appointed. As we know, all our feast days, you can just look at our feast days, and the Sabbath days, they are at appointed times. Just like the new moon is. The new moon comes every month. There's a new moon at an appointed time. It says, blow up the trumpet in the new moon in the time appointed on our solemn feast days. The feast days, again, we have a chance to not sit at home and be bored, eat by ourselves. We get a chance to be around one another. So that should really mean something. It says, verse 4 says, for this was a statute for Israel and a law of God, of the God of Jacob. So this is a statute. This is not, God didn't lay these things out, put them in the pages of this book, the Bible, or the book of the law, the book of the Lord. God didn't put these things in here just to fill in the blanks for no reason. These things are not stated just for suggestions. They're for reasons. There's a reason behind God wants us, because what is it that we say we're doing before the time of Christ coming? What is it? What is it they say we're doing? Rehearsing the what? Rehearsing the righteous acts. So when we do these things, we have to do these things with a certain, you got to be serious. Again, you got to have joyfulness of heart. You got to be glad. You got to have because when you enjoy doing something, it sticks with you. You get involved with it. You learn more and more about it. It becomes a part of you. So this is why we do this thing, and then this shows our honor to our God. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed, on our solemn feast days, because this was a statute for Israel and a law of the God of Jacob. And we proclaim these things. Let's go to the book of Leviticus, chapter 23. Leviticus, chapter 23, and I'm going to read verse 1 and 2. It says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel. So therefore, we know when we read this thing, God didn't give these, he's not talking to no other people but Israel. And he says, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim. Proclaim. What does that mean, Bagiona, to proclaim? What's that? So, it's like a meeting. When you proclaim something, think about it. Proclaim. You make an announcement. It's like you make an announcement. You make it be heard. You proclaim. So it says that ye shall proclaim, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocation. That's what we just talked about, that gathering, that gathering. Even these are my feasts. Now he goes on to speaking about these are my feasts. And we know when we read through Leviticus, it speaks of the Sabbath, which is a feast. The 7-day Sabbath is the feast that we just eat cold food on. We don't eat hot food. But during the new moons, we can eat hot food. We bought in some hot food that we're going to feast on when the class is over with. But we make a proclamation, we proclaim it. We made an announcement a week or so ago. And it was telling us, okay, looking at the calendar, we got a new moon coming up, we're proclaiming it. Remember, this is a holy convocation. We're going to gather at such and such a time down here. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 24. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 24, it speaks here. It says, speaking to the children of Israel, saying, in the seventh month, in the first day of the month, you shall have a Sabbath. There we go with that Sabbath again. Sabbath, Sabbath. Just like the Sabbath day. What's one of the rules of a Sabbath day, Brother Yona? Think of a rule of a Sabbath.
Should I cook?
Now, this Sabbath we can cook. This is a new moon. Think of another rule of a Sabbath day.
And this one is an holy convocation. We should
Okay, holy convocation. It's one that the elder reminds us, I don't no buying and selling. So we got to remember that too, also. Because we always remember there's some rules and some stipulations to go along with our Sabbath day. The no buying and selling. We can take on this one. New moon, we can cook. But still no buying and selling. Well, that period from what? What time to what time? Yes, sir. All praises. So right here is telling us now, right here in verse 24, it's speaking of the memorial blowing of trumpets. But it's also showing us that in the first day of the month, when we read it, it says in the seventh month, which we know in that seventh month, we're going into the memorial blowing of trumpets on that first day. But that first day of the month is what we're doing today, just like we're celebrating a what? New moon. Praises. So it says, in that seventh month, in the first day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, memorial blowing of trumpets, and holy convocation. There we go. So we got everything that's broken down that we do. And it also states that ye shall do no servile work therein. But ye shall, and now here's something right here that we don't have to do anymore. It says, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. Do we make offerings anymore? Okay. Do you know? I know you probably don't know, but let's go to this is what we do since we don't have to have burnt offerings anymore. This is what we do. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 13 and 15. It says, by him, therefore, let us offer the sacrifice of praise to God continually. That is the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name. So we praise God by the fruit of our lips, with our mouth. That's how we praise God in substitution for the burnt offerings. We don't have to do that anymore. Let's go to Numbers, the book of Numbers, chapter 10. The book of Numbers, chapter 10, verse 10. It says, also in the day of your gladness. When I went to Deuteronomy, I was given an example of one of the reasons why the Lord put them curses upon us, breaking his laws, turning our back on us, being stiff-necked. But at the same token, we read that he said, because we didn't serve him with gladness, joyfulness, and gladness. So also right here it says, also in the day of your gladness. It didn't say in the day of your boredom and you know, you know what I'm saying? In the day of your gladness, so because we know this day is coming. We know the new moon is coming. Every month the new moon's coming. Nobody else has that to look forward to. It says in the day of your gladness and again in your solemn days and in the beginning of your months, you shall blow with the trumpet over your burnt offerings. I just explained that part so we don't have to worry about burnt offerings. And then we go to Hebrews 13:15 that shows us what we do in the place of that. And it says, Ye shall blow with your trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your God. I am the Lord your God. In the apocryphal chapter of the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 43, Ecclesiasticus, chapter 43. Now, I know a lot of times, there's times when elders has used the computer generated little diagram to show the moons and so forth. And right here, it states right here in verse 43, it's talking about, he said, he made the moon also to serve in her seasons. So in seasons, in her seasons, for a declaration of times and a sign of the world. So when in the beginning, when we read Genesis, the Lord made, we read about the great light, two great lights, and so forth, and the stars. So God did these things so they could be a declaration of times and signs for us. Verse 7, it says, from the moon is the sign of peace, a light that decreases. And this is where the illustration that we've seen before that Elder would use, it shows the different cycles of the moon. So we know when he explained to us about in the creation, when God created the moon, he created it in its fullness. It was lit. It wasn't dark. It was lit up bright in its fullness. So right here it says, from the moon is a sign of peace, a light that decreases in her perfection. Here it goes, right here. You can see it up on the board. So we can see from at one point it's full, and then it starts to decrease in her perfection as the day is just like right now. We got overcast because it's been raining, but we've seen the moon at its fullest when you're observing it. And as time goes on, it starts to decrease in its perfection. That's what it's talking about, decreasing in its perfection. So it starts getting that little shade of darkness, to it's like what they call says, oh, I can't see it real good. It says the first quarter, and then it goes on. Is to the right. I'm going to the right, where it gets darker and darker on the left side, and then all at once is you can't see it. But then it comes back around in that cycle. Then it starts lightening up again. It gets brighter and brighter and brighter all the way until it's at its fullest. And then during that time, at that point in time, is just like now when we're celebrating the new moon. It says, verse 8, it says, the month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully. We just seen that. Increasing wonderfully. The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above. That's talking about the angels and shining in the firmament of heaven. I was thinking, when I was reading this, I was thinking, well, it goes on to some read verse 9. It says, the beauty of heaven, the glory of the stars, an ornament, giving light in the highest places of the Lord. I was thinking about, an elder's been excited about us next year uh, tabernacling and being actually out there. I don't know if any of y'all ever been out someplace where it's real dark like that, like in the camping in the woods when you're away from the city. I ain't been camping, but I remember one time I was working with this guy. We was down this way out 65, about an hour's drive from here on this lake. But the white folks go every summer and hang out. But they had this cottage. We was doing some electrical work. And a few times we had to stay there because it was We had to work kind of late, and it was, coming all the way back in town. It was useless, so we stayed. It was pitch black out there, pitch black. But when you looked up in the sky, you can see stuff you don't see in the city. That was so magnificent. It wasn't in the truth then, but I can remember that sight. I can remember that sight. So it was talking about, even if the moon had been out, I seen the stars. So this right here says that the beauty of heaven and the glory of the stars, an ornament giving light in the highest places of the Lord. Man, I just couldn't do nothing but just sit out there in that pitch black darkness. It was weird because you'd be hearing critters and stuff roaming around. You can't see it, but you're just looking at the sky, and it's so magnificent. With the bit, you can't see it downtown. Down here, when we go, we don't see the magnificence of the heavens because we got too many city lights that's diffusing it. All right, all right. That's what I got for the new moon scriptures. I'm getting ready to get into the class. The class is titled "The Customs of the Nations Are of the Customs of the Other Nations Are Snares." The customs of the other nations. We have customs. God has given us customs that one of our customs, we're celebrating it tonight. It's our new moon. We have various other customs. But the other customs of the nations are snares unto us. And doing this, I mean, from the time any of us had gotten into the truth, a lot of us could, we dabbled. We didn't know any better. When we didn't know any better, we lived our life um, accustomed to doing those things. I always say of the American customs, the customs of this place we live in. Things that we were taught by our parents, and it was it was just what we had to face until the Lord called us out of there, and start, so we can learn what He had in store for us. But the book of Jeremiah, chapter 10, gives a little example of dealing with the customs of the nations, the customs of the people that we surrounded by. And the history. We know the history. The reasons why these things was forced on us. We had no choice in the matter. These things were forced on us. We start partaking in them way back. I mean, when we was Gloria's age, I mean, we didn't know nothing. We was just seeing what our grandmamas and uncles and aunties and mamas and daddies brought to the table. And then we was raised up seeing these things. Seeing this right here in Jeremiah chapter 10, it tells us, it says, hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. It says, thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen. So the Lord is telling us to learn not the way of the heathen. The heathen is the nation. And it tells us here, it says, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. Because as we know, who are dismayed at the signs of heaven? The other nations. They see the signs that we know of is for a purpose. God given signs for a reason for us. They want to flip it around and um, use those signs in other ways, in other forms. I'm just it's sort of getting way deep into it, but the signs, it says, for the heathens are dismayed at them. Let's go to, as an example, let's go to Deuteronomy 18. Deuteronomy 18 just made me think of something, but I ain't gonna touch it. You know, write it down. So I ain't gonna. I went to Deuteronomy 18, chapter 18, verse 9. It says, so the Lord is telling us, here it says, when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. So God looks at what the nations was doing and the things we copied and the things we picked up. We good for picking up bad habits, good for picking up things. And it's just like when the Lord was telling us in Jeremiah 10, he says, thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathens, be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathens are dismayed at them. When we go back to Deuteronomy, he's warning us, he's telling us right here. He says, when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. So those things we picked up way back even when we was little, and mama, our parents and our family members, they still doing these things today. And God looks at these things as being as abominations. He says there should not be found there. Here, he goes a little deeper, but at the same time, people are still doing things in this world today that's similar to the things that's described right here. He says, there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or daughter to pass through the fire, or that uses divination. That passing through the fire is going into what we know is abortions. When the ancient people was sacrificing to Molech, and it says, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or consulter with familiar spirits, or wizards, or a necromancer. Because we got people today that play with tarot cards, people that love the zodiac signs. They love to talk about, oh, you're a Sagittarius, and oh, you Pisces, and all that old kind of stuff. Still on the same basis. So they looking at witchcrafts, dealing with magic and all that kind of foolishness. So the Lord is telling us to stay away from those things because, as he stated in Jeremiah, to learn not the way of the heathens. We're not to learn those things. Try to pick up on them. He said, verse 12, it says, for all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. So we know abominations are things that are disgusting to God. He hates them. It says, these things are abomination unto the Lord, and because of these abominations of the Lord, thy God doth drive them out from before thee. But see, we being Negroes, we'll run right after them, try to hold on to them. We don't want to let them go. Back to Leviticus, going back to Leviticus chapter 18. Let's move to Leviticus chapter 18. Got a little something there I want to bring out. Leviticus chapter 18, verse 1. It says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speaking to the children of Israel, and saying to them, I am the Lord your God. After the doings of the land of Egypt, wherein ye dwelt, shall ye not do. And after the doings of the land of Canaan, it says, whether I bring you, shall ye not do. Neither shall ye walk in their ordinances. So now this gets really deep right here, because this could go into a lot of the immoral acts that we learned when we was in Egypt and over there during that time. But they were still dabbling in the things that they seen in the sky. In order to deal with their magics and whatever you want to call all that kind of stuff. But it says, neither shall ye walk in their ordinances. God already gave us, he's given us now during that time. We're getting ready to start getting more and more and more and more laws and ordinances and things and statutes that God's going to give us. Because we was some messed up people when we come out of Egypt. That's why I said during this time. Because if you go back and read Leviticus, that's why it tells us a lot of laws that's given to us because we was in sexual immoralities and all sorts of things. When we read down in verse 4, it says, and ye shall do my judgment. Lord says, ye shall do my judgments and keep my ordinances to walk therein. I am the Lord your God. So he's stipulating the fact that we got to get away from all them gods that we was worshiping, following their ordinances during that time. So we had to get all that, we had to push all that stuff out of our minds and get away from them. Going back to Jeremiah 10. Going back to Jeremiah 10, verse 3. It says, for the customs of the people are vain. What's that, Brother Young? What's vain?
Then it's not true, not worthy, it's not true.
Okay. Something's vain. It could be not true or useless. Okay, it's not worth anything. It has no value. So the customs of the people are vain. They're useless. They're worthless. They have no value in them. This is like today. We're celebrating a new moon. God's holy days have value. They're worth something. They mean something. That's the big difference. The custom of the people, their customs are vain. And that's going into one that everybody knows. We came up with it. For one, cut up a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman, with an axe. They take up the silver and gold, they fasten it with nails and with a hammer that it move not. What's that, Brother Yona? Yes, sir. Verse 5. And this thing, this tree, this, when they deck it, they're decorating it. And they fasten it with nails and hammer that it don't move. And they said they are upright as the palm tree. So this is going into Christmas tree, like you said. It's going into that. So they fasten this thing and they do everything they can to make this thing so glorious. And they looking at it with the eyes are lit up, they're smiling. I can remember so much energy put behind this thing, being a kid, helping mama. Put this thing up in the living room, right? You move the curtains all back so it can be seen from the street. But since these things are upright, so verse 5, I'm not going to get into a whole lot of that because this, you have to go back and you can Google the origins and so forth of the Christmas tree because it'll tell you that it goes back to Nimrod and so forth. It gets real deep from that point in time to talk about this tree and so forth. So it's very interesting to go back and Google that, get that information because it goes back talking about Nimrod, because Nimrod married his mother, Semiramis. So there was a lot of crazy things that happened back then. And these were paganistic things that we picked up. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, it's a hang on the back side of that. The book of Proverbs, chapter 3, tells us about, here it says, envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his way. The same thing is telling us, so to speak, sort of like in Jeremiah, learn not the way of the heathen. Because our oppressor are the people of the other nations. Here in Proverbs 3 tells us to envy them not. Because our people don't realize when we try to imitate these people, we imitate them so wholeheartedly. You know, our people go to the extent of uh, putting contacts in their eye because they like the blue and green eye. They go to the extent of dyeing their hair. These things are customs that we form. Now, those people, their hair just kind of grows naturally, you know, blonde and so forth, whatever, you know, but we go to an extra extent of having to go to artificial means to try to look like them. Let's see what Leviticus says about, let's go to Leviticus chapter 13. Here we go. Man, look at our people. Look up there, Brother Yona. And over a period of time, that is sickening. That is like sickening. Look at the brother in the middle. It- his hair is whipped up looking like Elvis Presley, but it's blonde. And then got them blue eyes. For our people to have that much envy in them that they create a custom of their own to do these things, to look like another people. It's hatred, self-hatred. It's hatred. They don't like the way God made them. They hate the way they actually normally look. You know, I've seen old photos on Facebook to show. I forget somebody just pops out with them, but they way back when me say when me elder, he ain't too far behind us, but there was times when our women had afro. We had, you know, they was their clothing and stuff was still, you know, we know the wasn't right, you know, tight fitting, this, that, and other. But still, wasn't nobody putting nothing blue in their eyes. Wasn't nobody putting that blonde in their hair, trying to make themselves look like the white folk. Even the bleaching of the skin. I looked at your boy right there, right on the left hand side. Wasn't he a baseball player? Sammy Sosa. Wow, and you know, I didn't know he bleached his skin to that extent. I heard it, and then now that girl to play tennis, one of the what's her name? Uh, yeah, I didn't know that they can bleach their skin to that extent. That's self hatred. Here I am sitting up here. My mama was dark as Sister Kyla. I was always wished that I was dark like my mama. I had one sister that came out with the same tone as my mama. My mama was dark skinned, my daddy's about the same complexion as me. So like three of us came out, three of us came out like my tone. I got one sister that came out, we say chocolate. You know, I'm growing up, you know, it didn't bug me or nothing like that, you know, but there was the times when I was like, man, you know, I wish I was a little bit more chocolate. And these people, these fools today, they are trying to be completely, they trying to be white. Wow. But and let's go to business, like I was saying. This.
Hold on, hold on.
Okay, go ahead, Elder. Yes, sir.
Give me Jeremiah. Give me Jeremiah 10. Go back to those bleaching pictures real quick, bro.
Jeremiah 10.
Yeah, and give me verse 3. No, verse 2. I'm sorry, verse 2. Watch this.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 10, and verse 2.
Mhm.
Says, thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen.
See, that's what he means. That's what he's talking about right there. Don't learn the ways of the heathen. You bleaching your skin, and you blonding your hair. You learning the ways of the heathen. That's what God says. Watch this, read.
And I'm sorry, it says, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. For the heathen are dismayed at them.
They dismayed it. Watch this.
For the customs,
For the what?
For the customs,
Customs.
for the people are vain.
They useless. You're blinding your hair. You're lighting your skin. It's got nothing to do with you getting to the kingdom of heaven.
Oh, praise.
It's a people that is God will put over top of us that our people run after. So now, watch this. Give me Isaiah 30:1.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 30 and verse 1.
Watch this.
Hear to the rebellious children.
See, our people are rebellious because we just can't seem to just do what God wants us to do. God is the author of beauty.
Yes,
He's
sir.
the author of beauty. But yet, we don't want to look like God. We want to look like his creations. That don't make sense.
No, sir.
That don't make sense. What is it? What y'all
It says, "Oh, to the rebellious children,
that what?
saith the Lord, that take counsel, but not of me."
See, our people take counsel, but it's not a God. They counsel is a man. You know, if we look like them, maybe they ought to accept us more.
Yes, sir.
Maybe the police won't kill us. Maybe blah, 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 blah. But God said, now, this is our people is attached to another people. But your people don't even respect you.
Still.
So they say, look at these people with this blonde in their hair.
Yes, sir.
And they not seeing people. Believe me. I'm using polite words. It's officers class, so I'm well, watch this, read.
It says, that take counsel, but not of me.
They take counsel, but not of God.
And they cover with a covering, but not of my
You
spirit.
see, they cover with a covering. That blonde hair, that bleached skin, they cover with a covering, but not God's spirit. So they cover themselves. They put makeup on, light makeup.
Yes, sir.
They putting weeds in their head. They covering themselves with a covering, but not with the spirit of God. Because if they knew the spirit of God, they knew that blonde hair is a sin. That's what officers was going to bring out. Yeah, I'm going to let them get back to it. But before we go any farther, you can take it down now. Oh, take it off. Because I want to touch something. Because you said something back earlier, and I wanted to touch that, but this was juicy right here. You made me. I had to dip in it. So you said something earlier about the feast days. Now listen to what Officer Nathaniel is bringing out to y'all. Y'all brothers and sisters online. All right. Y'all in here already know, but the brothers and sisters online, pay attention what Officer Nathaniel is breaking out to you, because I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna touch something that he was talking about. He was talking about our feast days got value. When something got value, like if you got a penny, and that penny is 1,000 years old, that penny got value. It's not worth one cent no more.
Right.
It's worth maybe $10,000.
That's right.
So it got what? Value. So now let's see about God's feast days. And then I'm gonna turn it back over to Officer. You keep putting your hand where you at, Officer, because I'm coming right back to you. But I want to touch on this real quick because you was talking about God.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now give me Ecclesiasticus real quick.
Yes, sir.
Touching something real quick. Ecclesiasticus chapter 33. Because I'm gonna show you the value of keeping God's feast days. All right. Ecclesiasticus chapter 33 and verse 7. So right there.
The book of Ecclesiasticus in the Apocalypse, chapter 33 and verse 7. Why does one day excel another?
Why is one day more important than another? Read.
When as all the light of every day in the year is of the sun.
Because the sun, it's saying, why is one day more important than another? Because the sun comes up on every day. Read. Why? Let's see why.
says, by the knowledge of the Lord.
No, the reason why it's so important, why one day excels another, the reason why?
By the knowledge of the Lord.
See, by the knowledge of God, that's why one day is better than another day. Read, watch this.
They were distinguished.
They were distinguished,
and he altered seasons and feasts.
You see what he did? He altered seasons and feasts. So do these days that God exalted better than another. He made feast days out of these days that he made high. It's going to explain it. Come on.
Verse 9. Some of them have he made high days.
You know what a day is? Day is a very important day to God. See, Christmas is not God, because we just read in the Bible, he said, learn not the ways of the what?
Of the heathen.
And Job said what? Do not celebrate what? He said, I hate my what? The day I was what?
Born.
So we don't celebrate birthdays. So we don't celebrate birthdays. We don't celebrate holidays.
Right.
We celebrate God's feast days because God feast days hold value. I'm almost done, y'all. Hold in there, hang in there. I'm almost done. Now, I'm going to show you that. Come on, read.
It says, some of them have he made high days and hallowed them.
Watch this.
And some of them have he made ordinary days.
See, so ordinary. So when everybody say God day is every day, they're lying. Because God just told you right there, God day is not every day. See, they just ordinary. Some days is just ordinary days. All right, now, from her, also give me Isaiah chapter 66. So now we understand. Now watch this. Isaiah chapter 66. And this is the last one.
66 and verse.
And start with 22.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 66 and verse 22. It says, for as the new heavens and the new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, saith the Lord. So shall your seed and your name remain.
So shall your seed, your children, and the name of Israel remain. Everything else, right there, you see, the Lord is telling you everything else is going to be gone.
Right.
But your seed and your name is going to remain.
Yes, sir.
Watch this, come on.
Verse 23. And it shall come to pass.
And now here, this is the point. Point is right here. That even what officer was saying, I'm showing you that we got value celebrating God's days. And y'all sitting around here celebrating these nothing days.
That's right.
They got no value. Let me show you how good you serving God days help you. Read.
And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord.
Y'all see that? That's after you get into the kingdom. It's after. So God's days have so much value that he's going to be celebrating them with us. Ain't nobody going to be celebrating Christmas with y'all in the lake of fire.
That's right. All praise.
All right, officer, go ahead. Back to you.
Praise. Thank you, Elder. All praises. But to show, when we were showing those illustrations, we was talking about how people envy the other nations going into blonding their hair and using the what they call the things they put in their eyes to discolor them, to give them blue eyes. The book of Leviticus. We're gonna go to the book of Leviticus, chapter 13, and it show you the seriousness of the matter. Because, like I said before, the Lord just don't give us suggestions. I mean, and I started to bring that out. After the elder put the idea in my mind, I said, I ain't going to go. But our God was the first author of beauty. God formed us in his image. That's what a lot of people don't understand. God formed man in his image. So God knew what he was talking about. When he was going to make something beautiful, something good looking, It's never stated in the Bible whatsoever about the other nations and them being beautiful. Not whatsoever. But here's what happened during the time what our Levitical priests would do, because they looked out for us. And they was almost like the doctors. They checked us out for things. In the book of Leviticus, chapter 13, and then go to verse 29, we'll start there. And it says, if a man or a woman have a plague, is a plague a good thing or a bad thing? All right. That's like an illness or a sickness or something. If a man or a woman have a plague upon the head or the beard, verse 30, then the priest shall see the plague, and behold, if it be in sight deeper than the skin, and there be in it a yellow, thin hair. What's that remind you of? Brother Young, what's that yellow, thin hair remind you of? Yes, thank you. But what people was that hair on? White folks. That's what I'm saying, man. It says, then the priest shall proclaim him unclean. Damn. So why is it our people want to envy the oppressors? It tells us envy thou not the oppressor. Our people trying to envy, look like them people. Putting yellow thin hair on top of their heads. They unclean. They making themselves unclean before in the sight of God. Not only that, it says it is the dry scalp, even a leprosy from the head or the beard. Wow. So these are the things out of foolishness, the things that our people will do that call themselves doing something but to show that, like Ella was saying, how in their minds they think they're going to be accepted more by the white folk. They're going to be approved of. That's why they do that. And believe it or not, 100%. Oh yeah, you best believe. At the end of the day, when them folks go home and they get around their peoples and they sitting around looking at TV or whatnot, they dogging the Negro out. They drinking their beer, laughing and hee haw. Man, don't they look like some damn fool walking around with their hair, that color. No damn well they ain't supposed to be walking around with blonde in their heads. Psalms 106. Book of Psalm 106. Excuse me. Psalm 106. And I'm gonna start at verse 35. And I'm gonna skip a little bit. But I like to use it sometimes as illustration. It says Psalm 106, verse 35 says, but we're mingled among the heathen. We've been in this country, bought over here in slavery the way we were, and we still here, and we still mingled amongst these people. We're mingled among the heathen, the people of the other nations, these people that the Lord is telling us not to envy, the oppressor. And it says right here, same thing Jeremiah was saying, and learn those not to learn their ways. Here we mingled among the people and learned their works. We ended up learning their ways. And if these ain't great identifying markers, I don't know what is to identify our people's characteristics, their way of thinking. Wow. We mingled among the heathen and learned their works. Verse 36. And they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. What's a snare do, Brother Yona? That's a trap. a trap. So our people are so foolish. And they go right and do contrary of what the Lord tells them not to do for good reason. God tells us he's got good reason why he tells us not to do certain things. Like a good parent would. I remember being hard headed. My daddy would tell me not to do stuff, and I would do stuff anyway, and then get in a trap, get in trouble. You're gonna look like a big idiot at the end of the day. A lot of people do this thing. I'm gonna jump up to verse 41. And it says, and he gave them into the hands of the heathen. So when we read Deuteronomy, we can put this thing together just by reading Deuteronomy, by the things that happened to us in Deuteronomy, facing the curses that the Lord placed on us and why. So God gave us into the hands of the heathen, and they that hated them ruled over them. That's right there in Leviticus 26:17. They that hated them ruled over them. Verse 42. Their enemies, we read about our enemies in Deuteronomy 28:68. Their enemies also oppressed them. So we was hung on auction blocks. All kind of atrocities was committed to us. These people hated us. They oppressed us. And it says their enemies oppress. We're going to look like our enemies. We're going to be like our enemies. Wow. And guess what? After we was, even in Deuteronomy, it tells us that we'd be sold unto our enemies, right? Bond men and bond women. And right here it says that they were brought into subjection under their hand. Mm, wow. We still to this day, we don't even understand how these things are a snare unto us. Trap. And it keeps our people going against God consistently. Contrary, consistently going against God. In the book of Baruch, real quick, in the Apocrypha, chapter 4, verse 6 and 7. Book of Baruch, chapter 4, verse 6 and 7. And it says, and ye were sold to the nations. Now, due to our stiff neckedness and our wanting to be contrary to God, when God scattered us, he sent the enemies against us. He said, we were sold to the nations, not for our destruction, but because ye moved God to wrath. You were delivered into the enemies, for ye provoked him that made you. So we provoked the Lord. He made us, he's our maker. Why we act like we stronger than him? Why we go around, why our people go around like, with the attitude as if they're gonna make the Lord do what they want him to do. It says, for ye provoked him that made you by sacrificing unto devils and not to God. Anytime our people don't even realize, anytime they just, and I'm just thinking about the season to come. All year long, our people do it. But this is that time of the year, it ain't gonna be long. They gonna be, they already showing it, the ghouls and the goblins and the skeletons and all that. People they get off into all that, and then they turn right around and they go into that day they call Turkey Day, and then they turn right around and they go right on into that day that we was reading about in Jeremiah. And our people consistently serving another God. They don't see themselves being in idolatry. In the book of 1 Corinthians 10 and 20, even Paul speaks of 1 Corinthians 10 and 20. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 20. He says, "But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to the devils." Our people do the same thing. Follow right behind what the nations doing. They think they do it because they've always, even from the time I was a kid, we was all little children, time we was little children, they put the glitz and the glamour on everything. They use the colors, the smells, the lights, the sparkling things. These things will allure you. The seduction seduces us. So we sacrifice the devil. So Paul saying, he said, "But I say that the things that the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils and not to God. And I would not that ye should have fellowship with them, with devils. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils. You cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and of the table of devils." That's Christianity. It's Christianity. They do all these things. Oh, I'm gonna get it. Here's what they say. Here's what they do. Go to Luke Luke 16:15. The Lord the Lord called them out. And this is what our people do. Book of Luke, chapter 16:15, because you get in the conversation with people and you talk about these things and you try to show them the wisdom behind what God is speaking of against these things. Luke 16, verse 15. It says right here, Christ says, this is in the red lettering. I'm gonna go on, let me see something. Let me just start at verse 14. And it says, "And the Pharisees also, who were covetous, heard all these things, and they derided it. And he said unto them, Ye are they which justify yourselves before men." That's what that's what black folks do. They try to justify themselves when they're around and you talking to somebody. Well, we on the street teaching. They'll try to justify their sin. They'll try to justify themselves before men. They try to justify. I remember talking to people about Christmas and blah blah blah. Well, we only doing it for the children. Well, we're just doing it to, to be with the family. You mean you can be with the family and do things for the children anytime? Why you gotta wait for this particular time on this particular day? But they justified. He says, "Ye justify yourselves before men, but God knoweth your hearts." We all know that. Where we go at, Brother Yona, to show that how God knoweth our hearts. I know I'm throwing one on you. But God knoweth our hearts. Let's go to Jeremiah 17 and 9. God, and people will say that foolishly. And God knows my hearts. In the book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 9, it says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. And who can know it?" See? So God knows your wicked heart. He knows exactly what you mean and how you feel. And he knows exactly how you're trying to twist it. You're trying to lie your way up out of your actions. Going back to Luke 16:15. He said, "Ye are they which justify yourselves before men, but God knoweth your heart. For that which is highly esteemed among men, don't our people highly esteem their birthdays? They highly esteem all the Thanksgivings and you name it. They highly esteem. They put it way up here. But guess what? Guess what? He says, for that which is highly esteemed among men is an abomination in the sight of God. See, they don't realize that. They ought to just touch base on the birthdays in Job. You can tell them and they continuously do it. They continuously do it. You can't even go on social media and open up Facebook just to scroll through it. You mind your own business. And then the next thing you know, you see people you know grinning, talking about some happy birthday to so and so and so and so. But our people have been doing that for so long that they're gonna learn. They they they're going to learn. Um, they are going to learn. Our people have done this thing for so long. It started way back. I don't even know if how much I got time I got, Elder. What else? Because I was going to add another. Let's see here. Example. Another example here. How our people love the custom of other nations. And if we go back, we go to the Apocrypha and the Maccabees, First Maccabees, book of First Maccabees. And I'm gonna be doing some skipping, but I just want to shed some light on some things of how our people were even during this time. First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 11 says, in those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. But since we departed from them, we've had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. They devised this thing, they thought about it, and it pleased them. It says, verse 13, it says, then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Mm. So you got to realize the Israelites, the Jews, dealing with the heathens, the Greeks, the same way it is today. These people love for us to turn our back on God to go after their ways, go after their fashions. This is what just an example I'm trying to use right here. Just instead of reading the whole thing, it's good to go back and read it off for yourself. But this shows an example. Verse 14, it says, whereupon they built place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathens. Now they in Jerusalem, and they know our customs was not in no kind of way the same as their custom. But these wicked men in those days, it's just like today, it's all about the money. It's all about the prize. It's all about the status. So that's what it's about. And our people would do a lot of things, strange things, for that piece of change. When you go to Maccabees Right here, still in First Maccabees, chapter 1. And I'm going to just read, start at verse 41, read down a couple of verses. It says, moreover, the king of Antiochus, he wrote to the whole kingdom that all should be one people. Now, this kind of goes, this take it into a deeper class, but one people is just like here in America. They want us to be all one people. That goes into the Christianity, that goes into democracies. And it says that everyone should leave his laws. So these people wanted us to leave our laws. See, they were pleased at that thing. Those wicked men, those wicked Israelite men, all the Greeks was letting them have their fun. Because he wrote this letter saying that everyone should leave his laws. That was focused on us, making us leave our laws. So all the heathen agreed, according to the commandments of the king. And yea, verse 43, also, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols. Let's go back to the sacrificing unto devils. We was always drawn to wanting to do what the other nations. That goes back to that Indian your oppressor. And in doing so, they profaned the Sabbath. They profaned the Sabbath. So our people was doing the same thing back then. It must be in the DNA. It's the characteristics of the brain or something, because it's that spirit. That's what it is. It's that spirit that's on people. That same spirit that was back then is in the people today. And they after that same lust. They after that same pleasures that they gained from that. Second Maccabees. Let's go to Second Maccabees, chapter 4. And I'll just read on down to from verse 7 on down. But it still is showing that our people was subject or subjected or susceptible, however we want to put it, to these things of wanting to be like the other nations. Second Maccabees chapter 4, verse 7, it says, but after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus, called Epiphanes, took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be a high priest. So he wasn't no high priest, but he underhandedly did some things to make himself look like a high priest of sorts. So he was a traitor. He was a backstabber to his own people. And promising unto the king by intercession 303 score talents of silver and other revenue, 80 talents. So this guy, he had to he had to buy his way through. Besides this, he promised to assign 150 more. If he might have license to set him up a place of exercise and for the training up of youth in the fashions of the heathen. So this guy was going out recruiting young Israelite brothers to write, it says, in the training up of youth in the fashion of the heathens, and to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochians. Wow. They're going to be recognized instead of being recognized as Israelites, they're going to be recognized as Antiochians. This is kind of similar. This is going into sports. This is actually kind of going into sports because what do they do today? You know, when you get picked, you one of the great young athletes. You know, you've been looked at all across the country. They bring these young men in. You understand? And check this out. It says, which when the king had granted, and he had gotten into his hand the rule, he forthwith brought his own nation to Greekish fashions. This is what Jason did. He brought his own nation into Greekish fashions. And the royal privileges, check it out, the royal privileges granted a special favor to the Jews by the means of John, the father of Eupolemus, who went ambassador to Rome for amity and aid. He took away and put down the government, which were according to the law, which were according to the law. Whose law? It was our law, it was God's law. He brought up new customs against the law. Wow. So our people go for the dope. They'll turn their back. They've been turning their back on God way back then. Turn their back on God for what? For the royal privileges of the other nations. It says, for he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men, the best of the best of the best. He brought these brothers in under the subjection and made them wear a hat. That's the same similarity of today when young men get picked to be on a particular team, NFL or whatever. I think basketball is the same thing. They stand up there, they have the news conference, and they got all the microphones in front of them, and the TV cameras is out there. What they do? They got a hat on. They put that little hat on their head. Yeah, I'm a Denver Nugget. Yeah, I'm a Dallas Cowboy. Same thing. Verse 14. Verse 13. Verse 13 says, now, such was the height of Greek fashions. The height of Greek fashion. Man, they was at the top. Things was banging, you know. And it says, and increase of heathenish manners through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch, and no high priest. That the priest had no courage to serve anymore at the altar, but despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifices. They hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise, because the place of exercise back then is what's the gymnasium? You know what gymnasium means, Brother Yoma?
It's up with sports.
Yeah. But then the Greekish fashions, what do they do in the gymnasium?
Gladiators.
Yeah. But they wrestle and they practice the naked. Gymnasium is a place of nakedness. So that's what they did. So it says, they hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise after the game of discus. Discus, that's in the Olympics. They throw that thing look like a frisbee. It's got some weight behind it. Verse 15. And it's the same way it is today right here. Not setting by the honors of their fathers. Our people don't even take the time to understand or want to even try to get the history about their own forefathers. Not setting by the honors of their fathers. Real quick, I'm gonna stop right. I'm gonna come back because this is right. I'm getting ready to close it out. This is the last of my class, but remember in the book of Romans, chapter 15 and verse 4, it says, for whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. So the things our people, instead of wanting to negate the Bible and try to find fallacies, and it's the history about their own forefathers. Our people don't even want to understand or learn about what the great men that our forefathers were. If they knew the interesting things that's in the Bible, you got all the war stories you want. You got all the battles, all that. So, and it was by our forefathers. It says, not setting by the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of the Christians best of all. Man, I'm sitting there looking at TV the other day. I couldn't go to sleep. I wish I could. But all I seen was on this, they was talking about the history about the Germans fighting and the Japanese and the warships and all that, blah, blah, blah. I was like, man, they put all that crap. And our people will watch that stuff and be entertained by it, and that's all they'll know. But they don't even know what's in the Bible about the true warriors, the warriors of God, our forefathers. He says, not sitting by the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of the Grecians best of all. And it says, let me go on and read verses. I'm going to read the rest of it. He says, by reasons whereof sore calamity came unto them, for they had they had the Grecians to be they was their enemies and avengers. One minute they was their enemies, and one minute they was their avengers. They was those they sought to help them out when things got bad, and whose customs they follow so earnestly. When you follow something earnestly, what does that mean? You do it by the book. Man, you don't miss a beat. With everything you get, with all the gusto you got. And our people followed their customs like it, still like it today. And that's the Christmases, birthdays, Halloweens, St. Patrick days. Now they even got auntie days. What they got, nephew days? They make up some days. They got days. I mean, Elder was talking about that. Now, man, they got some days they just done made up. Yeah. Dog day and cat day and but says, whose customs they follow so earnestly, and unto whom they desire to be like in all things. And with that, I hope that y'all got what I was trying to bring out. Got the gist of it. And that's all I got right there, brothers and sisters. Thanks for joining me and listening to me. And like I said, I've got a couple of nuggets out of that. And with that, I'm also with Nathaniel with TTIC. With that, I'm going to say shalom.
Shalom.